This is pure adrenaline production here.
Welcome to the Boiled Sports Handsome Hour. It is a special edition. I don't know. Is it a special edition, Anish?
It's always a special edition. Every time
Every
we're
episode is
able,
special.
it's always special with us.
Get your rocks glasses for the holidays. No, don't actually, because they're gone.
No, you can
you can get those. You get the aluminum ones.
You can get the aluminum cans, which also serve as a koozie. It's beautiful. Get them at the BS OnlyFans store.
So I guess the real question
/store.
Is this streaming is really the question.
It's a great question. I think so. We had a couple technical difficulties earlier
That's
today.
Unusual.
I think you can
when
share.
Has that ever happened?
I know. I think you can share that link that I shared with you, J Money. I think it's fine. I think there theoretically should be people here. It'll be on the interwebs if it's
Let's see. Video unavailable.
There we go. Dylan Kuhn is here. So Dylan.
Let me share the other one though in the hold on.
Share the one that I just sent you. This is a perfect production. It's totally fine. Nothing's going wrong. We're
anyway.
Exactly at the very least. You know, we've got Dylan here, so that's what matters.
That's really what matters. So, it's Bucket Week and it's IU week, and I thought about introducing our guest for the week by listing like works by Bob Kravitz or Greg Doyle, and just like continuing to list things and he also is the author of this.
Not Bob anymore. It's only Greg now. It's only Greg with 2 G's.
Oh, that's right. Kravitz is at the Athletic, right? The point was it would be completely undermining him and introducing him inappropriately. So instead, we've brought on the other half of the Zach Osterman, Anish Ramaswamy buddy cop drama that will be on Fox this fall.
That's right.
Only one of us is quoted in the Purdue media guide, though.
I know. I haven't broken that barrier, my friend.
Foreman grabbed my quote about Mackey Arena being the best environment in the country.
Gosh, why did I say that?
It is though. It's up there anyway.
For some reason, he never quotes us saying nobody comes into Ross-Ade, but we were saying that back when nobody actually came into Ross-Ade, not like
Weirdly,
now when nobody wins at Ross-Ade.
I have a question I want to start Zach off with here. Because you may know this, like we cater to the Purdue fan, the casual Purdue fan and the diehard Purdue fan. And none of the ones that I'm going to be talking about here in this example are probably listening because we're not very nice to them. But there is a weird contingent that is really dissatisfied with a 7-4 Purdue team that could become 8-4 and have back-to-back 8-win regular seasons for the first time in 25 years, and theoretically has a path to the Big Ten title game. And they're acting as though that's disappointing. So I'm curious what you would say as someone who covers IU sports, like IU football, about fans who are pissed off about that sort of a run.
Stop being stupid. and I would say it to IU fans too. And obviously IU's in a slightly different position, but like, I find myself with IU fans now being like, listen, I get it. I get the last couple seasons have been disappointing. Last season, I think, was particularly disappointing. But, like, you have a coach who found a formula for something you hadn't done in 30 years. Like, you don't – I know – and I recognize I'm going to sound like the old man of the sea here. But, like, I know –
Oh, you'll fit right in. Don't worry about it.
I know that we live in this world of instant gratification of if you don't like it, just throw it away. Amazon can get something to your door 24 hours later. But like, stuff like this just doesn't work that way. And two programs, and Anish, I know you and I have talked about this, that on both sides have more in common historically than they probably want to admit, and certainly face a number of the same challenges because ultimately they're trying to recruit from the same recruiting base. They are, financially speaking, in similar positions within their conference. Obviously, Purdue, for the moment, this won't be for much longer, but for the moment, Purdue has the semi-advantage of the Big Ten West. But the flip side is I can tell you something. I can tell you coaches prefer recruiting to the East because when you recruit to the East, you can tell kids, like, you'll play Michigan, you'll play Ohio State, you'll be on ABC, NFL scouts will be in the stadium, you'll play at Ohio Stadium. I won't use
coaches
names.
Coaches don't want to go play at Iowa.
Yeah, I mean, like I won't use names, but like an Indiana coach has literally told me before, I can't go sell playing in Champaign. Like nobody's going to get excited about that. And I'm not picking on Illinois. I guess I am a little bit, but the point is, you find something that works, like hang on to it, because the reality is most good college football seasons are like 7 to 9 wins. And basically the goal is to get yourself to a place where you do that so consistently, and all the habits that you build and the way you recruit and develop and all that and then you do that for the one season where it all slides into place, and you play the right teams at the right times, and suddenly you get to 11 wins.
11
Really,
Indiana. 11 Indiana. No, in the history of Purdue football, we're still waiting. We're still sliding and ready. We're ready to go.
Indiana's never had a 10-win season.
Never?
And they've never had any. And I think Purdue's had one. And I'm not, I struggle to toe this line because I have many friends who are good IU football fans, and as somebody who grew up in the South, like, in some ways, obviously basketball is king here, but I do in some ways enjoy talking about football more, because that's just like culturally, that's what I grew up with. And I struggle to sort of toe the line and not make it sound like I'm telling them, oh, just be happy with your lot in life, because that's not what I'm suggesting. But like, when you find something that works like that, recognize how historically difficult it has been. And maybe it's a little bit harder for Purdue fans to get perspective because, the Joe Tiller sort of peak years are a little bit more recent. But like, in the wider historical scope, recognize how difficult it has been to get that far. And then what will it be, 4 bowls in 6 years for Brom this season? Am I right in saying that?
Yeah.
So, like, recognize that is consistency at a level that, like, probably half the Big Ten would kill for that, maybe more than half the Big Ten, frankly. And so, like, Nebraska would kill for 4 bowls in the last 6 years. They would be over the moon in an 8-win season right now.
I think you're misjudging Nebraska fans, because they had 8-9 win seasons over and over and over, and it wasn't enough. Do you think now?
I think they would take them now.
It's been recalibrated.
I think now they would be like, but then the problem is, then they would do this too, where after 2 of them, they'd be like, all right, it's time to win a national title. But
that's what I don't understand with the point you're making about Purdue. You said the Tiller years. It was 25 years ago the last time they won 8 games in back-to-back seasons. It was 97 and 98. That's longer than some of these people have been alive. Longer than any of the players, except maybe Aiden O'Connell, have been alive. And we're only like 6 years removed from Purdue being in a lower spot than they literally ever had been. Like, almost historically under Hazel, like people can talk all they want about IU being bad. IU hasn't been that bad in a really long time. Like, those Hazel years were really recent. And when there were literally, what were those pictures, Anisha, of Ross Aid when we started making that joke? What were there, like 5,000 people, 3,000 people in Ross Aid? Like, and this year they averaged like 59,000. Like, it's astonishing to me, the lack of perspective that people have. And I'm not, that's exactly the point I've made, is you don't have to be happy. You can be, hey, I expect more. I would like there to be more. I think they could continue to get better. I think that's all totally fine and valid. And you can be annoyed when they lose a crappy game to Iowa. That's fine. But you got to look at it from the macro sense too, don't you? Where 8 or 9 wins is on the table. Like, that's, I don't know. I think IU got a taste of that a couple of years ago, and it's almost like they're kind of getting. So that's another question I have for you. You said something about Tom Allen having figured something out there. Do you think his job is safe at IU?
This year, yes, definitely. And that's a combination of, what it would cost to fire him, which, when I recognize when you say that out loud, that's not an endorsement of job security. I completely get that.
Right.
But I think also a recognition that his first 2 seasons, he went 5-7. He was 5-6 going into the Purdue game. That was after Kevin Wilson had gotten to back-to-back bowls.
Mm-hmm.
Then he went 8-5. They went to the Gator Bowl and lost to Tennessee. Then they went 6-2 in the COVID season. They beat Wisconsin at Wisconsin. They beat Michigan. They beat Michigan State at Michigan State. They beat Penn State. For all the world, I think we can probably guess they would have beaten Purdue that year. Purdue was really struggling by the end of the season, and it
But
really
we'll
didn't
never
matter.
know. Unfortunately, we'll never know. I'm not sure that we can say that. We'll never know. I'm sorry.
Literally both teams. In some ways, it would have been interesting to just make both teams play with like all their, because both teams were on COVID pauses, both of them, when they knocked that game off. So if you just made like Indiana show up with 46 players and Purdue show up with 39 players, like see what happened.
Take volunteers.
But it just like that was the most successful stretch an Indiana coach had since Bill Mallory. And by the time Indiana was doing its most prolific winning under Tom Allen, it was doing it with kids that Allen recruited. It wasn't like, Allen actually, the truth was Allen inherited a roster that was incredibly like senior heavy in his first year. And they,
there's a siren in the background.
That's my 10-month-old who doesn't stay asleep. There was a lot of turnover to young players that Allen recruited and developed in 2018, and there were a lot of growing pains. And then they had 2 great years. You have to give a guy like that one more shot. And as much as that, if you do get to a place where you have to fire him, and listen, most coaches get fired. That's the other sort of, fans want to be unreasonable about their expectations, but then they also want to act like coaches are around forever and everyone has a happy ending. And they forget that like Bobby Bowden basically got fired, like maybe the single most influential coach in the history of college football got fired. Essentially, he got forced out. Most coaches get fired. If you do get to a place where you have to fire Tom Allen, then the next guy needs to know he's going to get patience, because this is a difficult place to win. It just is. And you can make an argument that it could be better. You can make an argument that, with time and persistence and the right hire, you could have Pat Fitzgerald at Northwestern, or if you shoot the moon, Barry Alvarez at Wisconsin. That's probably a lot less likely because of expansion and everything what the Big Ten is looking like going forward. But the point is, the next guy, you're not going to get a coach of any reasonable talent if coaches look at a job like Indiana and say, I'm not going to get any time. Like I'm going to go there and they're going to try and fire me the minute things start going wrong.
Playing the flip side of that, though, it's the Big Ten. It's a Big Ten West job. It's a Power 2 job. At this point, it's the Power 2. And there are going to be no divisions. You're recruiting in a good base, here. And so it's like, is it really though? Like, I know that it may scare off like some of the top level folks, right? But like, I don't know if those folks are coming to IU anyway. At this point, like if IU is like, because it looks like Wisconsin's just hiring internally, and I don't think I think Nebraska's going a different way. But like if Lance Leipold were to look at, if Indiana were to open and Lance Leipold was to be trying to hop to a Power 2, like would he really think like, oh hey, they fired Tom Allen after 2 disappointing seasons? I'm not sure anymore.
It would be an interesting case study. And it's also worth saying, financially, Indiana's still climbing out of its COVID situation. Schools like Indiana took a smaller hit on the COVID deficits, but they're going to need more time to get out of them for the same reason they took a smaller hit on them, which is that they make a lot less money on football simply because they don't have 100,000 seat stadiums. I do just generally kind of believe, in the same way, I don't believe Indiana basketball has to be patient. That at some level, Indiana basketball can just be like, no, as long as we've won 5 national championships, as long as we have the recruiting base we have, as long as we have the facilities we have, as long as fans sell out our arena, we can be slightly unreasonable. And it's also basketball. So all we need is one guy to come in and land.
It's a lot easier.
Two good recruiting classes. And suddenly, look at Mike Woodson. He inherited a team that was 12-17. And I can't tell you exactly where Indiana's going this season, but I can tell you it's the best Indiana team I've seen in 7 years. So, it only took him 20 months. I just think football has to be different. And I think that you can, Indiana's recent history tells you end up with, coaches that are not fully into the job if if you depress the ceiling of what you can hire. And that goes back a little bit, but I just think you have to be patient, and in particular, patient at a time when you probably can't be very financially reckless. The truth of the Big Ten TV deal is, fans are seeing dollar signs, and listen, people like me put the dollar signs in their eyes, talking about it's going to be $1 billion, it's going to do this, it's going to do that. The flip side is you got the COVID deficits. Now you've got athletic directors who are having to go to their donors and say, don't give me money, give the collective money, because my programs need NIL cash. Now, will that be, my son loves that song, but I mean, my son loves lots of songs.
John Bada says Zach looks suspiciously like the fifth guy in the sea shanty TikTok that went viral during COVID. I agree. It's good. It's a good look for you.
My son actually does enjoy dancing around to that song, but
it could be you. Who knows?
The other part of the TV deals is because, especially at the programs like, the programs that aren't making just like fat money on football every Saturday. The truth is that a lot of that TV deal money is kind of already spoken for, because you are having to tell your donors to redirect some of the money you would be taking into your department, for the moment anyway, to NIL collectives, which means you're going to need to replace that money somehow. And when you're also servicing, COVID deficits, when you a lot of campuses like froze debt service, because when athletics departments build big things, they'll tell you what the full price is. They'll be like, oh, this is our $85 million football team facility. But the truth is they'll pay for it over 30 years. Like, nobody's writing an $85 million check and handing it to a contractor. So you're constantly, and usually what will happen is the university will help front some of that, because the university has the endowment to comfortably take on the debt without any real risk. And then together the department and the university will pay that. Well, a lot of that stuff got frozen during COVID, but at some point, obviously, the bills are going to start getting paid again. I'm kind of rambling, but the other part of the money with a lot of programs, even in, and you're not wrong, even in the Big Two, is a lot of that money, athletic directors are looking 3, 4, 5 years out and saying, well, we know what we need to be spending that on, because we are having to take some money out of other pots, essentially. And then when you factor in that the deal doesn't fully mature until CBS comes online, I think in year 2, either year 2 or year 3. I just think Indiana is possibly going to be better off if it waits, if it does have to fire Tom Allen. And it may not. Like, listen, if he wins on Saturday, then people can gnash their teeth at the 7-game losing streak all they want.
They're not going to remember anything else.
Well,
that's it. This is IU season, right?
They'll have gone from 2-10 to 5-7, which is a commendable improvement. They will have, done so on the back of a number of promising young players, and they'll have won both of their trophy games. If you had offered an Indiana fan that in August, again, without wanting to lecture anybody, I think you'd have been foolish to turn that down. That's improvement. That's a step back toward where you want to be. It's hard. I get it. The flip side is I completely understand fans who want more. Like, we all want more. Always we want more. But you have to appreciate that, like, history can teach you some lessons about basically what's realistic, and overnight turnarounds don't usually happen. And so, and frankly, if I were almost any coach, any AD in America right now anyway, like literally almost any AD in America, I would actually, if my donors came to me and said, oh, you need, I don't know, $15 million to fire the football coach and we'll give it to you, I think I would actually literally tell them, put that money in a collective somewhere.
Save it. Yeah.
Because then the buyout will have next year. It'll be easier to fire him then. And then when I go replace him, I'll have all this money that I can hand to them. And it's obviously not easy. People are sometimes more motivated when they're angry. And I'm not just talking about Indiana. I'm just talking in general. But the calculus of like how money moves around for athletic directors and athletic departments is changing so dramatically right now. And if it goes to revenue sharing, which is where people think it's going, and I'm totally getting off topic here, forgive me, it will change even more. And in the meantime, I think for a lot of people, when it comes to the financial part of decisions like this, like, don't be overcautious, but discretion is probably the better part of valor.
I wonder if it raises the ceiling of some of the better teams, right? At least in the short term, it raises the ceiling, not some of the better, some of the richer teams, right? It raises the ceiling for Ohio State, Penn State, Michigan. But it basically for, even for anywhere from Michigan State, Wisconsin to Purdue and Indiana, it kind of just moves the gap between them and like Kansas and, other kind of non-power two teams, right? It just kind of widens that gap, but it doesn't take anybody closer to that. I have a question. How much do you miss Tom Crean right now?
Last time I texted with Tom, something about soccer. What was it? Oh, he was recommending Pep Guardiola's book. That's what he texted me. I'm not kidding. That's what he texted me. So I haven't had a long conversation with Tom in a while, but Woodson's, Woods from a reporter's perspective, Woodson's a lot of fun. He doesn't hide the injuries very much. He's just very NBA about it. Like,
yeah,
he's very like, I was the head coach of the Knicks, so none of this bothers me. And, he'll just sort of tell you like, oh yeah, Trace Jackson Davis has a sprained thumb. Like, he won't just be like, oh, he has an arm injury when, his thumb is wrapped up. He'll just be like, yeah, he has a sprained thumb. He
seems like a great guy to get a steak with.
I don't know if I'm allowed to swear on this podcast.
Yes.
But like, he swears pretty regularly. And often very, like, somebody asked him Friday night about when Malik Renew came on his official visit, the freshman that was committed to Florida, and he was recounting the whole thing. And he's like, and then he came on his visit and he told me he was coming to IU, and I gave him a big ass bear hug. Like, he just, it's just like, it's just, it's refreshing because, and I've written this, so I don't feel bad saying this out loud. Some elements of college basketball coaching had become very performative. Like, it felt like they'd become very like, I'm the coach that's at the, I'm in the AAU gym from 7 a.m. to midnight. And, nobody goes to more of the high school workouts than me and all that. It's just sort of like, yeah, but like,
but to what end?
It kind of seemed like they needed coaching.
Yeah, right.
And we lived in this world where it was like, oh, well, the NBA is where all the good coaches are, because that's where all the innovation's happening. And you don't have all the headaches of college, but college can only hire college coaches. And it's like, well, wait a minute. If all the good coaches are in the NBA, shouldn't we be trying to bring some of that back to college? And I'm not saying Mike Woodson is, a top 5 coach in college basketball. I think this is going to be an interesting season to figure out exactly how he stacks up when he gets a good team. But I do think that there is just this more relaxed sort of like, we are not going to stress over like what graphics we give to the people to tweet about the schedule. And, we're not going to obsess over like what we put on the wall. And it's just going to be like, hey, like, we're going to recruit and we're going to coach. And like, when Jalen Hood-Schifino comes on his official visit, I'm going to tell him stories about, hanging out with Magic Johnson, because that's what I did in the NBA for 40 years. And he's probably going to think that's cool. And that may connect him to me as a person more than like sitting him down and making him watch 2 hours of film about all the different things I'm going to do to his game, because I'm a genius when it comes to, the off-season workouts. And like, I'm not trying to pick on college coaches. There are plenty of really good college coaches. It is refreshing sometimes to get somebody who's not from just that sort of college pipeline of, we must not just do a good job, but make sure that we are seen doing a good job. And somebody who's just kind of like, yeah, I mean, just, when
it's
Indiana,
like you're hiring, a lot of times when you fire a coach, you're hiring the opposite, right? Like, you go as far as possible for it. It seems like Mike Woodson, like, to his credit, is about as far from Archie as possible.
He's farther from almost any college coach I've been around. I mean, like, right. When Indiana was in the Bahamas, Miller Kopp rolled his ankle, and they played 2 games there, and he rolled his ankle early in the second game, and he didn't come back. And when Indiana was wrapping up like Woodson's post-game availability, somebody like kind of rushed a question at the end. So what about Miller Kopp? How's his ankle? And Woodson just like looked down at the box score, and I think maybe just for the first time realized Cobb only played 3 minutes, and he just goes, "Shit, he'll be all right." Like it was just and it was again like it wasn't this like, oh well, we'll have to get him back, and the trainers will look at him and we'll see. It was like it's August 3rd, and I'm gonna go play some golf. He rolled his ankle, guys will be fine. Like there's so much in college basketball sometimes that feels like it's a fire drill, and it's when it's just like just none of this needs to be so intense. And yeah, I don't know how I got on that, but
he's already coached in the NBA. Like to your point, like I always thought, like he's already coached the Knicks. He's done a lot of stuff, and now he's been asked to come back to IU and do this. And I feel like he's in an advantage because like if it works, terrific. If it doesn't work, I've already coached in the NBA. Like
the sweet,
he just kind of when I see him come off the court and get asked a question, he's kind of like, all right, just let me go to the locker room. He kind of answers a question and then he goes. He's still wearing the suits. He's one of the only guys left who's doing that.
He answers almost every question we ask him. He starts almost every answer with, well, again, guys, because, and I think it's basically because he's been asked that question by somebody for, again, like, he did the Atlanta media for 5 years. He did the New York media in 2 different stints, if you count his time as an assistant. Yeah. I think he's looking out at us and being like, seriously, like I had to face down the Daily News like every day for 95 games in a season. I'm not really worried about what,
right.
This ginger whose name I don't know from the Indianapolis Star is asking about like substitution patterns. But it's also refreshing here because, I mean, I don't think it's, Tom could be an intense guy. And listen, that was part of Tom's personality. That was part of, I firmly believe, what made him a good coach. And he is a good coach. Like, I get that people love to sort of pick fun at Tom Crean. Like, he won a lot. I mean, he won 2 Big Ten titles in Indiana. He got Marquette to the Final Four. It's not an accident. But then you had Tom and his intensity and his passion, and then things just kind of we can have a whole separate conversation about the Archie Miller era or whatever. But by the end, things were just so kind of dull and lifeless at the end of Archie's tenure. To just get somebody in who, again, wasn't going to be a salesperson or a cheerleader or anything like that. Was just going to be like, hey, like I just,
it is what it is.
I love Indiana. I love Bloomington. I met my wife here. This is the only program I would ever have left the Knicks for. Right. I drink like expensive wine because I have remarkable taste. Like, I think pretty sure he smokes Cuban cigars.
I was going to say, what do you think? Let's say Matt Painter and Woody go out for a steak dinner to some unnamed restaurant. What's the over/under set on the bill?
Yeah, it's high. And to be fair, I think part of that meal is probably Matt Painter geeking out a little bit.
Oh yeah,
because Woodson would have been like Matt Painter's told. I've heard Matt Painter tell stories about being in the IU locker room in the '81 Elite Eight, which was in Bloomington because campuses could host back then, and just like reveling in like the players celebrating and Isaiah Thomas just sitting. So I think there's a part of Matt Painter would be like, wow, it's Mike Woodson. And then there'd probably be a part of Matt Painter that was like, hey, you still can't find any 3-point shooters. That's not great, is it? But no,
I can't believe I've beaten Mike Woodson.
And at no point would either one of them feel the need to post on social media about the dinner.
Nope.
I don't think either. Matty keeps it, like, I think just performatively, but he does not. He's got an old soul, man.
I don't think Woodson does a lot on his social media either. I think most of it is like a.
Does he own a smartphone?
I have, I don't think I've seen him on the phone. I would be surprised if he didn't. I mean, keep in mind, this is a man who's still friends with Leon Rose and William Wesley, and
this is fair.
He's worked in New York for several years, so
it's the people around him can have that. That'll count. Jay, that counts as my basketball question. Go ahead. I indulged. I indulged myself. Go ahead, Jay.
Well, I wanted to get the official Zach Osterman take on the bucket game. What the prediction is? You gotta come on here and actually tell us what you think is going to happen, and you can be honest if you think, because I'm concerned.
So I'm not going to lie to you. I think Indiana's going to win, and most of that is vibes. Because if you covered up the final score of the IU Michigan State game, you would have had an almost impossible task convincing somebody Indiana won the game. Like they completed 2 passes in 7 attempts. But they also They also ran for like 290 sack adjusted yards. You know, I mean, like everything about last week, you know, because I try to do opponent radio when I'm asked, and Michigan State is one of the bigger sort of like they have a pretty active sort of radio scene. So I usually do a lot of hits in Michigan State week. And understandably, the question I got most was basically just like, where's Indiana's head at? Like they've lost 7 in a row after 3-0, after 2-10. Do they still have any fight left in them? And it, you know, it looked for a decent period in that game like they didn't. You know, I mean, they went up 7-0, and then they gave up 24 unanswered points. They got it back to 24-14, and Michigan State scored again. And then they just kind of kept fighting. And Michigan State had a lot more yards, but to lean on a coaching cliche, Indiana made the winning plays. Like Indiana made plays on special teams. Indiana made plays on defense. They got 4th down stops. They got turnovers. They were, for the life of me, I still don't know why Mel Tucker was still kicking to Jalen Lucas, but they were trying to kick off for a touchdown. And you know, it just that is sort of like a that is sort of like, yeah.
See,
this is what makes it hard.
You.
When people comment on the side, it's very hard to stay focused because we've got some clever.
Well, you also have to use sack adjusted yards with Indiana's rushing attack because Indiana gives up a lot of sacks. I believe they're still last in the league in sacks allowed. But they just, you know, they've got some young guys that are finally stepping through. Dexter Williams, the quarterback. Jalen Lucas has been really good. Donovan McCulley, I think, is probably played better than his numbers the last few weeks. And Williams is still pretty raw as a passer, so that's part of the issue. But there is a little bit of sort of like, well, hey, it's just house money, you know, and we beat Michigan State. Why can't we beat Purdue? You know, that was on the road. Indiana hadn't won there on the road in front of fans since, I think, 2001. You know, so what's going to stop us? And Purdue's a little beat up. And I don't think Purdue's a bad team by any means, but like 7-4 doesn't make you a, you know, you're not 2018 Clemson either, you know.
Sure.
I don't mean you. I just mean the general you. You were both 2018 Clemson.
Thank you. Hey, thank you. Man.
Clearly.
That was the year they won the national title, wasn't it? I can't remember.
Sure.
It all blends together.
It sounds right. It was one of those.
You said it with such conviction, and
yeah, it was one of those teams in the South.
It's not out there. Nobody can look it up. So.
But you know, it just like I said, it really is vibes. Like that's all I've got. But
and so I feel nervous because now it's IU has showed fight, and
I'd rather they be defeated, completely like giving up on their season, and they have.
And if they'd lost to Michigan State, especially the way it was trending, I would be sitting here saying,
"Yeah,
this game is going to be the most run of the mill, 44-24." Right. You know, like everybody's going to be half paying attention, scrolling through Twitter on their phone for most of the second half kind of games.
Yeah.
But now I think there is a legitimate chance because now this also becomes Indiana's bowl game because now Indiana can look at it and say, we're not yet. There is this camel through the eye of a needle. Isn't that the cliche? Like you pass a camel through the eye of a needle like that. There is a path that wide for Indiana to make a bowl at 5-7. It basically requires like
a whole bunch of teams to lose and not get to 6 or something.
Teams losing this weekend and there's still like Rice is 5-6, and if they lose, they've of course because they're Rice, they've still got like the best APR of all the 5 winning teams. Like they're going to a bowl either way, and it's very and like I think their APR is not bad. It's actually pretty competitive, but I think Michigan State's is better, so Michigan State would move ahead of them, which would be sort of.
Well, how about the fact that like let's say Iowa loses on Friday to Nebraska. And now Purdue needs to win that game to go to the Big Ten title game. Suddenly IU has an even more fun reason to.
Yeah, I actually think again, and listen, part of my theory on this is just that I've seen teams screw it up in this rivalry a lot. Now,
you don't have to say, yes, teams in this rivalry screw it up. Yeah, Purdue and IU screw things up constantly.
Historically, the one I've seen more often is Indiana, but you know, like Indiana, like to a man, including if you got him on this podcast, Mark Hagan would tell you the 1989 Indiana team believes that not beating Purdue and making a bowl game cost Anthony Thompson the Heisman Trophy. Now, I don't know if that's true or not, because he wouldn't have played in that bowl game before the Heisman ceremony. But they firmly believe that if they'd beaten Purdue, if they'd put another bowl game on his resume, he would have won the Heisman. It's a combination of basically Purdue is the better team, but Purdue is weakened by some important injuries, especially if Mockabee doesn't play.
Yeah, it's unsure. Yeah,
Purdue has to go on the road. Bloomington's not a crazy imposing environment, and Indiana will always fight uphill to get people in the stands because they moved this game to after Thanksgiving break instead of before it. So Indiana, unless they're good, unless they're having a good season, it'll be hard for them to get, a ton of fans in there. But it is still a road game for Purdue. Purdue has to carry all the weight of expectation into this game. If Indiana wins, or if Purdue wins, it's just like, well, Purdue win, whatever. But Purdue is coming in expected to make this the game it should be, and it's going to be even more intensely that way if Iowa manages to lose to Nebraska. Which, by the way, like if Nebraska decides to elevate Mickey Joseph, like between now and the start of the game, because there's some rumors that might happen.
Really?
Suddenly it all starts. I have no idea. I've just seen a couple people.
I would be shocked at that. We talk about, so we always talk about Nebraska football on this podcast just because we're haters and we enjoyed it. We used to always open when it was Frost, it was very easy to talk about Nebraska football for the first 5 or 10 minutes because it was just so much fun. But I would be shocked if they elevate. I like Mickey Joseph. I think the players like him.
I bet Leonard, though, like speaking of like Big Ten coaches that get hired before the end of the week.
There were a lot of people believed that Wisconsin did that when it did that, so that it would give Jim Leonard enough runway to earn the job.
Bowl eligible? Are they?
They're bowl eligible. Yeah.
That's not bad. That's a turnaround from where they were.
He's 4-2 since he took it. But no, I just like everything about this weekend is basically on Purdue's shoulders.
Yep.
And Indiana.
Nothing has ever gone wrong when everything is on Purdue's shoulders. Nothing in history.
Super reliable.
But Indiana has, a roadmap. Now, again, it's not like it's the most. It's not like it's the most sort of applicable formula in the world. They can just throw it onto anything and it will work. But Indiana has a roadmap to winning this game as an underdog, and basically all the motivation and none of the risk.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why I just I can't give you a final score because I don't know what that looks like.
Because it's vibes, man. Because it's vibes. Don't
Exactly.
worry about it.
And listen, vibes have let me down so many times in my life. If we go back to all the fraternity parties I attended freshman year, how many times vibes just completely let me down, and I misread them entirely.
Don't undercount vibes here.
But it sometimes, this is one of those rivalries that really does run on vibes, like the Egg Bowl. It's all like the Egg Bowl. The Egg Bowl the Egg Bowl is made of vibes.
All vibes. Agreed.
Like in the way that Anakin Skywalker was created by the Force, the Egg Bowl was created by the vibes.
The guy that celebrated pretending to be a dog peeing changed the course of college football.
I know.
It's just like that. It's just tremendous. This is why college football is amazing.
All you Midwesterners think that the SEC isn't the best conference in the country. It's perfect.
It just means more down there.
Did you see what was happening with Lane Kiffin on Twitter tonight?
I
did. We saw it just before it came on.
That's just a random Monday.
Yeah, by the way, next random Monday, he's going to be hired by
He'll be at Auburn.
What he says.
Next random Monday, he's going to be drinking limeade at Tumor's Corner. Exactly.
That's right. Exactly.
My stepmother's going to be calling me and being like, "Oh, maybe I could get into Lane Kiffin." She went to Auburn, so she's going to be calling me and be like, "I wasn't sure about Lane, but I could. I kind of get it." And he's going to make I don't think Lane loves kissing the ring, so he's going to keep Cadillac Williams there, and Cadillac will kiss the ring until Lane wins enough Iron Bowls that the ring will stop needing to be kissed, and then he'll do something else ridiculous on Twitter because it's the SEC.
Because it's Lane. Lane is gonna. Here's my theory. Right before
I was hoping you would bring this up.
Before we end this, here is my theory. By the way, J Money's theory is that once Tom Allen gets the buyout, he's just going to come to Purdue as the defensive coordinator.
That's not my theory. I would.
It'd be the best job. It would be the best.
That was my idea.
I would take that. But if Lane were to succeed, let's say for like 3 years, and then Alabama opens up at Auburn, Lane moving from Lane would be literally the
He's
only
the
human
perfect
on
villain.
earth
Yeah.
to go from Auburn to Alabama and embrace it. And then he
Nobody
would be the coach.
surprised.
He would be the head coach of Ole Miss, Auburn, Alabama, Tennessee, and USC. The man is a legend. Come on.
The
should
only
be like
reason that won't
45.
happen is because Auburn will find a way to pay its coach $35 million a year if it has to. Like that, I don't know where those boosters get the money, but like they will dig oil out of the ground in Daphne
I
if
think
it
that's
means
what they do that's what they do in College Station, isn't it? $95 million.
Yes, but that makes sense. You're driven through Texas. There's oil everywhere. They will find oil somewhere
In Alabama.
East Central Alabama if it means keeping their coach from going, a successful coach from going to Alabama. Like it's they are so committed, and it can be bizarre sometimes. And again, as somebody who and my Lord knows my stepmother is not of of that persuasion, but that does. Having Auburn alums in the family does give me a window into the Auburn world, and it is a strange and wondrous place. It's a trip through Willy Wonka's chocolate factory on the best of days. But no, they would if they had to like invade some small nation somewhere to just to absorb their GDP to pay Lane. If Lane Kiffin had won like 3 Iron Bowls in 4 years, and they had to like conquer Canada somehow to
Just
make
Nova
sure
Scotia.
like,
Just Nova Scotia, not the whole.
yeah. I mean, or just like Saskatchewan.
It's fine.
You know,
It's
The
totally
SEC
fine.
is so. The thing that I've never understood is like the SEC. There's so much. What's the right word? Just like, is it incestuous? But like Dan Mullen and Lane Kiffin and
the SEC
these guys,
loves. I mean, Auburn hired Mississippi State's AD.
it's just so
Florida
weird. You don't see that in the Big
Florida
Ten.
hired the one before that.
But you don't see that in the Big Ten. It's rare. I mean, Belima being back.
That's because it just doesn't.
left
It just
and
doesn't
came
mean more up here.
It doesn't mean more. I guess.
I do think that I think the SEC has always been more insular than the Big Ten, and obviously, I mean, the Big Ten is literally just a physically larger conference.
Yeah.
Sea
Particularly
to shining sea.
If you consider kind of the older SEC, the pre sort of Missouri, Texas A&M SEC that stopped at the Mississippi River, essentially.
Yep.
The reality is you could drive the breadth of the SEC in a day.
Oh, well, yeah.
It'd be a long day, but you could do it.
Yeah.
Whereas, I mean, Penn State, I know, is not historically a Big Ten program, but like in the modern history, it is. It came in the early 90s. You can't get from, it's what, probably 18, 19 hours, I'm guessing, from State College all the way to like Minneapolis.
Oh, yeah.
So I think the SEC has always just been more insular in that way. And yes, the SEC just absolutely loves. I mean, we can go back and I can find you. I mean, like David Cutcliffe, coming out of Tennessee, connected to Philip Fulmer. The SEC has always loved that. And the SEC is, I mean, like, Fulmer, I think Fulmer played at Tennessee, Spurrier played at Florida, Vince Dooley played at Auburn, Pat Dye played at Georgia. Like this, it's always been that way. And again, like the last 2 Mississippi State ADs were, if I'm not mistaken, Mississippi State alums who like loved Mississippi State and then left for other SEC schools. What's his name? Cohen, the I can't remember his first name all of a sudden, who just took the Auburn AD job.
Yeah.
Was literally Mississippi State's baseball coach, like a semi-legendary baseball coach, who then retired and became AD and is now at Auburn. Like that is just
it's so weird
the way that conference works. Will Muschamp has worked at
everyone. He's collecting the bingo cards.
3, at least 5 SEC schools.
One more and he gets a free
and only probably. I bet he hasn't worked at any other schools, has he?
He was at Texas. He was the coach in waiting.
So a future SEC school.
Back when we were still doing coaches in waiting. And he played in the SEC. Like it. I mean, it just that's just
means
the way
more. It just means, well, Zach, next year or no, in 2 years, I hope that eventually you at least make a stop off in Bloomington when you're making the Rutgers to IU to UCLA drive. So hopefully it's, you stock up on snacks. It's okay.
I can't wait for the first time I see the basketball schedule, and I've traded like Iowa, and because Iowa City's a fun little town, but like I've traded Iowa in mid-February for like a weekend in
Los
LA.
Angeles?
Oh,
Like
it'll be
it's IU UCLA, February 20th. It's a Saturday afternoon, so I'm gonna have to go out Friday and come back
Right.
Sunday.
Well,
and
Thursday, because you got
man,
to adjust to the time.
exactly.
Yeah,
It's the
And
time zones. Time
it's an
zones.
awful shame, but you will see me at the beach. Thank you.
Well, Zach, thank you for your time. It's always lovely to hear your voice and see your face. And
Absolutely.
we
If you're
will.
down, if you're down here this weekend, just holler. I'm always roaming around before the game.
did I the name of the buddy cop? I came up with it, by the way. It's you and Anish. It'll be called Ginger and Spice.
I'm Ginger. That's
You're-
the
yeah, he's
twist.
Ginger,
I'm
you're
the
Spice.
I'm
I
the
hope
Ginger. You're Spice.
hope
That's
nobody-
the twist.
Nobody sees it coming.
Exactly.
Nobody sees it coming.
See you, Zach. Thanks, buddy.
See you, fellas. Have a good night.
You too. Oh, all right. So you feeling nervous, Jay, buddy?
Yes.
Yep.
Yes.
That was.
Yep. And not
there was
because
no
of what Zach said.
hesitation.
Not because
No,
of
me
what he
too.
said.
Me too. Coming into it, it's like, oh,
Yeah, I mean, Purdue's played a couple of. I mean, it's so weird because I am lecturing like people, and so is Zach saying like, "Don't be stupid. Like, come on, just
Well-
like, appreciate what you've got." And I look back at Purdue's schedule. Purdue has now won 6 of their last 8 games, and here we are going, "Oh, I don't know. I'm so worried," because that's the way it is as a Purdue fan.
it's because we
Because
know. It's because we're smarter. We know this.
well, because
We've
even
been
their
here before.
wins, have they had a win where you weren't completely nervous the entire time? Like,
Well, so the Northwestern game is a little bit cheating because I didn't watch it live. I watched the recording, and so I knew the outcome.
if you
but
watched it
even
live,
then,
you would have been nervous.
okay, maybe, yeah. I guess. I
You
mean,
knew
like
they couldn't
know,
score, but
scrolling through Twitter, it was nervous Twitter. But it did seem that last drive wasn't very threatening. You know what I mean?
no.
But like Aiden O'Connell had missed on a couple. Like really easy throws that, I mean, at least one easy touchdown,
Right.
that would, and this is like in addition to the touchdown, the high stepping touchdown, which is insane that was called back.
Oh yeah,
but
we
like,
didn't talk about that, and we should.
oh geez, it should be required to high step into the end zone. I told you, everybody should be like, it's like mandatory celebrations and mandatory field rushing. You should be required to high step into the end zone.
How about taunting's okay as long as you're not like what is the harm of any taunting in that scenario when you are unabated to the end zone, no one's near you, you can't. That's like penalizing a guy who hits a home run and then styles on it. Like,
yeah, I mean, it's
like-
the bat flip. It's the unwritten
Right,
rules,
it's
and
the bat
nobody
flip.
likes the bat flip.
and
like,
here's how
complaints.
the people who believe in the game policing itself. Baseball is a little different because you're throwing a hard object at somebody at 100 miles an hour. That's a little obnoxious. But football, if that bothers you, make that guy pay the next time he comes across. I mean, that's a defensive player, but you could still run up. You could hit him, not dirty, maybe even take a penalty, but you could hit him in a way that's like, just wanted to reward you for that high step. I think you could play the game in a way that, again, is not filthy, but is making it clear that pissed you off. Or, hey, don't throw interceptions. That's another option.
I mean, he threw a pick six. He threw a really bad into double coverage pick six. He should feel bad. You should feel bad when you do that.
The best response I saw on Twitter was somebody said, if you throw a pick in a situation like that where the guy is that unabated that he can high step for 30 yards, then the flag should be on you.
Yeah, exactly.
Because you have disgraced the game in such a way by allowing him to be able to do.
By the way, and also taking a touchdown away from it. Like again in the NFL, it's either on the extra point or on the kickoff.
So think about
which is fine.
6 points and 30-yard penalty.
It's nuts. Which, by the way, Purdue shouldn't. It's not 6 points. It was 6 points on that thing. Purdue then not scoring afterwards, and it was a missed, like a really easy Payne Durham catch. Mm-hmm. There were 2 drives right after that Payne missed a really easy catch right afterwards, and then Aiden missed Payne, completely overthrew him. Right. There was one, I think it was was it Tyrone Tracy or was it anyway? Like there were a couple, like a handful of other ones afterwards that probably should have led to points that Aiden O'Connell missed. Again, it wasn't that taken away touchdown wasn't the only reason that this was in stupid range, but like Come on, like you can't. It's just
But
it is
not
so
having
stupid.
fun, like it's such an
Ugh.
absurd, like, again, if you're running down the field and you're giving the finger to okay, maybe you want to draw a line somewhere where being obscene is not allowed. Fine. I'm okay with
A little high
something that has
stepping.
some reality to it, right? Where you're like, okay, that's something we don't want in the game. But being happy, being excited, that's literally what that was. That's how you run when there's like, a movie you're really excited to see. I'm trying to think of something really good, but that's you running into the grocery store for regular Oreos.
That's right. That is correct. And Boiler Down running into it for thins.
Yeah, don't try to turn my attention away from your bad judgment to an even worse decision. But yeah,
Regular Oreos are just because you don't like Oreos, it's
I do
totally
like
fine.
them.
No, you
I would
like
never
you
turn them
don't you don't
down.
no. You just like
L.E.O.
Chris. You
Love
love
every
every
Oreo.
Oreo. Love every Oreo, Leo. Oh
Hey,
man.
I mean, I'm not going to not eat them. I'm not an idiot. I'm just saying
Well,
there are
you're
better
not
ones.
ungrateful. Yeah,
I'm
that's
not
right.
right. I mean, we had a few people here that Greg makes a really good point. If DEs can celebrate a sack, DBs can demonstrably celebrate an
That's
incomplete
right.
or tight ends and WEs, whatever those wide ends, can celebrate a first down. And he's right. He's right. That's a great point. Like there is celebration on every one of those things: a sack, a breakup of a pass.
Now that I think about it, allowing a sack celebration, but not allowing high stepping into the end zone as you've got
They're
like 10
exactly the
yards
same.
between you. Yeah, it's like
They're
you're
except in one case, you're taking points off the board.
you're doing the thing you're supposed to do, which is score points, right? I mean,
Right.
like it's the you play to win the game, right?
I've heard
No,
that.
it's just like it was infuriating. Big Ten refs again. It's just like they're national jokes. They should be national jokes, but
Well, and there was a ton of like, that speaking of people, if we're going to hammer on bad fans, first of all, don't go out there and tweet. I'm just going to say, first of all, I usually say you can do whatever you want. Everyone's entitled to their opinion. I'll tell you, don't do this. Don't go talking about players being idiots. Don't call them names. Don't call college athletes stupid. Don't say they're ungrateful or they're dumb or whatever all the things. I saw a bunch of people saying that. That's really, really terrible. Like, and then there's people talking about undisciplined. You should know the rules. Do you think about how many things a 22-year-old, 20-year-old college football player has to be disciplined about? Right? Like you can't. Like if you hit a second after the whistle on a guy going out of bounds, right? You're going to cost your team 15 yards. Think of all the times a guy's about to go down. If you hit him and it looks like he was already down, you're going to get a penalty. Hitting the quarterback, you're just about ready to freight train him and he gets rid of the ball. And if you hit him, you're going to get a penalty. Think about all the times especially defensive players, have to pull off of things and not get upset or not get loud or not hit somebody. So to act like, oh, totally undisciplined. No, that was joy. That was the opposite of being an undisciplined jerk. That was being like, hey, this is awesome. We're playing in a game that matters to us. Like, all right, I'm done now.
yes. No, keep going. No, it was. I mean, like if it's directed at somebody, to Motor City Boilers point, if it's directed at somebody, I get it. But like if it's just celebrating, it's not. It's real dumb. That being said, again, like it does not account for Aiden missing on a couple of those. Now, Boiler Dad was talking about, and he was in the stands. He was talking about how that should count as Purdue winning an inclement weather game, because he said, and I don't take this lightly. He said that was the coldest game
Among
he's
the
ever been
coldest he's
to,
ever been at. Yeah.
and that's nuts. I mean,
Wind.
like it didn't look again. It looked like
It was
a
fine from
cold
my
day. It was
couch.
fine in my it was fine in my living room. I don't know what he was complaining about, but
well, we were at a game where we were worried it was going to get chilly, and he showed up and he had like shorts, and I was like, "Oh, you're not going to wear a sweatshirt?" And he goes, "No, because I'm a man." And I was like, "Oh."
he probably wore shorts to this game.
He probably did. And then complained that it was cold.
It's the furnace. Ross 8 is about 10 degrees warmer than everywhere else.
Well, it usually is. So imagine how cold it really was.
Well, and so again, like Purdue, and the other thing, so Purdue kept running the ball, kept going to in the first quarter Maccabee, but then to Dylan Downing, who was the other running back? Kobe Lewis. was really great. What are all of these running backs all of a sudden that Purdue is pulling out of nowhere that are just
Running back
showing
you,
out?
man.
I know, running back you. We've often said, just run the ball, Jeff Brom. It's like it's fine.
So somebody said that Maccabee's dad had a tweet. Oh, he tweeted all aboard hint hint with a green light. So
I guess. I mean, like the refs sent him, so he didn't. He got hit. He got drilled pretty hard in the first quarter.
yeah.
But it wasn't like an open field tackle. It was kind of it was a close range tackle. But the refs ruled him out, which is fine. I'm glad that they do that. But again, it's like a concussion. He was sat out functionally, 3/4 of the game, 3.5 quarters of the game.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think, if he passes everything, that'll be fine. I would feel much better with him. That being said, Gus Hartwig is out, so I think Kaltenberger is probably going to be the backup that's going to be the starting center. That always kind of starting center, like backup center always makes me
Mm-hmm.
nervous. I mean, any offensive line injury is not great, but
center
starting center.
QB exchange is that's a one other thing to bring up about Saturday's game, because you talk about how you'd like to have Maccabee and Purdue's offenses looked a little weird lately, right? 17 against Northwestern, 3 against Iowa, after being kind of a 30-point automatic bet the over team all season. The weather for Saturday in Bloomington is going to be 54 for the high, 44 for the low. So no problems there.
Weather.
But showers, 60% chance. So it's probably not a guarantee, and it's only Monday, right? So by Saturday, who knows what the forecast will be. Wind is saying 7 miles an hour, which, I mean, they can't even predict whether it's going to be sunny or not 6 days out. So I'm pretty sure we don't know whether it's going to be windy. But if it's raining, I'm a little concerned about that. But I also think
if it's rain, you know what rain means? It means they can't throw in Purdue secondary either. And I actually feel I feel okay with especially with Kobe Lewis running the way that he did, even after Hartwig and Maccabee both went out. And Downing, looked really good. I don't know. I mean, we haven't seen King, and I haven't kind of read anything on it, so I don't know what his status for this is. But and even in the first quarter, out of the backfield, he did his weird Tyrone Tracy things. He wasn't quite the running back, but like he was catching out of the backfield and running. Like they got, at least in the first quarter, got really fancy with Tyrone Tracy, which was really nice. And so it's like there are options here. I am actually at this point more concerned about Purdue's secondary and IU not like IU as a quarterback that can pick it apart anyway, but like, Purdue has been picked apart by Spencer Petras this year, so who knows?
So I actually am not sure, because I don't follow Indiana very much. But is Bazelak, is he hurt? Because he didn't play against State, and that's what Zach was referring to. I didn't realize how Dexter Williams was 2. He was right. He was 2 of 7 for 31 yards.
It's Dexter Williams time.
Okay, well, then Purdue has very few excuses. You can be nervous all you want. You can be a Purdue fan all you want. Purdue has no real excuses here. And if Iowa loses to Nebraska, which I actually think is more possible than I think people are giving it, I think Iowa is sneaky bad, right? Like where they can totally lay an egg and score 10 points, and Nebraska can score 14. Like I really think
that season, for the first half of the season, they weren't very sneaky about the bad.
Right. And here they are, 1 win away from the Big Ten championship game, which, as I said on last week's show, man, nobody can argue that that's good for college football, because they're going to get pasted by whoever. I mean,
so would we, but like,
yeah, but Purdue would make it fun, man. Purdue could score points. Purdue's put up 30 something on last year's Ohio State team. Like, it would at least be fun. It would at least be fun.
Purdue, I would take either way. If Purdue ties and goes, or ties and doesn't in the Big Ten West, we're hanging the banner, and 10 years from now, nobody's going to remember.
Big Ten West champions. You're getting a Big Ten West champions hat.
The Co is going to be just very tiny.
Big Ten West
2 font.
Oh, I'm going to find a T-shirt for you if that happens.
Give me the bowl eligible one, please.
The bowl.
It's not even inviting. It's just like, yeah, we could go in theory. We could be invited. We're ready to be invited.
Is everybody behaving on the side over here because we had a guest? That was what somebody.
I think so. Everybody except John. Everybody except Doc Wattis.
All right.
But yeah, I don't know. I feel nervous. But again, like, I totally 100% get the vibes prediction of an IU win, because again, like, that 4-5 win jump is meaningful. It's a springboard after this Michigan State win where they looked full of life. It is to ruin your rival's season, which is always great. Like,
It's
I
always
mean, Purdue has
motivation.
gotten up for those IU games, before, in kind of lost Purdue seasons, not during Hazel, but otherwise. Um, and so it's like it's a rivalry game. Weird things like this happen, so I'm nervous, man. I don't know. Like, again, all logic points to Purdue, but man,
So one of the things I feel like I failed here is I should have asked everybody for their own version of L.E.O. Matt Bow 324 is the one who gave me this idea, because he replied and said life exists off world. So he's referring to aliens. I would like some more L.E.Os. So maybe we can get that going on Twitter this week, because
love every Oreo.
love every Oreo, love every Osterman. We used that for the
Exactly.
title of this one. Yeah, or love everyone, which is super weird.
Wait, no, it's love each other, isn't it? That's why
Oh,
we keep
whatever.
messing it up. I know.
That's
It doesn't
right.
matter.
I keep messing it up. You're right. It's love each other, which is maybe even more weird. I don't know.
Hey, man, it's fine. It's like you and me in a cross country road trip in your car. It's fine.
Lick every oyster.
Like,
Now, Motor City Boiler says lick every oyster, which I think now you're just thinking of words that start with the letters. It's almost completely random at this
I'm
point.
fine with it. I'm totally fine with it.
Craig says he went clean with lick every oyster. I don't know. Did he? I mean, I guess. Yeah, Dylan says that he tweeted. I saw this today. He says he tweeted about how IU would have to beat Purdue for 30 plus years to tie the series. And someone told me I jinxed it, and now IU would have a 30-game win streak. And he said that's Purdue fandom in a nutshell, speaking it into existence. Oh boy. John Younger says, lament each offense this weekend.
Yeah. Well,
John
I mean,
Lettuce
like, so no Big Ten team scored 20 points, and Georgia didn't break 20 points. So it was a weird week. It was a
really weird week. And then, like, oh man, that was Texas A&M struggled with UMass. And there were people on Twitter saying, like, A&M's, there's all these metrics right around, not just recruiting classes, but the talent of your team. And like, what was the stat? What was the number that Osterman was throwing around about teams that are 5-7 and they're it's a 3-letter statistic. I forget what it is now. Anyway, people were talking about A&M's and how, they're a talented bunch, and they were struggling with 1-9 UMass, and then Florida losing to Vandy. APR, thank you, Broxton Davis.
APR, yeah. By the way, that at this point, A&M is below Vandy in the SEC standings.
Vandy's suddenly won a couple games. They hadn't won an SEC game in a couple years.
They beat Florida. They beat Florida.
And it wasn't ever really close. It was very weird.
It was a strange week, man.
You had that. You had South Carolina absolutely waxing Tennessee, laying the freaking wood. And I know we didn't like to see Hendon Hooker, of course, get injured. But that has nothing to do with them scoring 63 points.
No, I mean, they were going to lose anyway. It was pretty late in the game, too. Like, he didn't. It wasn't the injuries fault.
Smackers. Holy
I mean,
hell.
like, Spencer Rattler is good, and so you knew that he would do that. He picked a good time, I guess, but
yeah, but that team was not expected to be any. I think it was on the full cast, right? They talk about how their coach, SC's coach, is always like, "I'm as surprised as you are." Like
Beaver's kid. Yeah.
After every win, it always sounds like he's like, "Wow, can you believe this?
Can you believe I'm a coach?"
It's true. He's like Danny Hope, only he's winning a lot. He's 7-4 at South Carolina. They're not a good program. That's
so good.
It's amazing.
Oh, well, it's it's not the weirdness of college football happens, and it doesn't have me feeling good about next week. But again, to your point, Purdue should be. I mean, it just should be an on the ground monster. I think Payne Durham. It's his last game. It's Charlie Jones' only game against IU, so who knows? But it's Payne Durham's last game. He knows the rivalry. Like, I would hope it's a big Payne game.
It's AOC's last game.
It's
maybe.
going to be AOC's last game. But again, he's been off these last the second half of the
Yeah.
season, he's been off. So I don't know. I'm hoping. And so I would say like a big week for the Payne Durham, like, last regular season week for the Payne Durham AOC connection. But I'd be perfectly happy with 200 rushing yards. It'd be great.
I agree. I was just looking at the side there and seeing that John Wattis had lift every opossum. I think he's just putting in things too that.
No, that means something. It's fine. LARP every other weekend. It's great. So yeah, I'm feeling nervous, but we'll see. I'll be hopefully eating my full with my second Thanksgiving meal of the weekend. It'll be pretty solid on Saturday. I'll be good. I'll be happy. I'll be in my happy place.
Food.
It'll be
We should,
it'll be the bush heavy. The bush heavy Thanksgiving meals can be on Saturday, so that's what I'm going to be full of.
Man, that stuff. I don't know how you put that in yourself. We should thank our sponsors who get thanked, of course, on the read at the beginning, in case we forget. But our friends at AJ's in Lafayette, in West Lafayette on Vine Street, go to eatajs.com and visit them and get yourself some funnel cake fries. And we always mention the fatty boy stuff: funnel cake fries, mac and cheese bites, as opposed to all the healthy options like Swiss burgers and things like that. And of course, our friends at Martin Vintage, where if you enter boiled at checkout, you'll get 15% off. Good time. It's going into the holidays, man. It's a good time to buy some Purdue stuff. Good time to buy your Brian T says that Dad is out shopping for some new glasses. That's probably true.
That's right. He got made fun of too much. His son made fun of him too much last week.
Anything to wrap it up with? We're over an hour here.
I think I'm nervous. I think it's a 10-point. It opened at least at a 10-point spread. 9.5. Or 10.5. Is that what you said? Oh, I hate that. I hate that. I mean, I get it. Again, Purdue should beat them. But like, again, vibes. The vibes are not feeling good on this one. But like, it'd be good. Again, and okay, here's the way to wrap this up. You go back, like you said, you go back to the beginning of the season, like IU's thing, which is like, you win 2 trophy games, whatever, right? Purdue is currently sitting at 7 wins, and our over-under at the beginning of, for everything that we said this year, for like, hey, the schedule could line up and it could be that 10-win season and this and that and the other. Do you remember where we set the line for a successful season?
7.5.
At preseason, it was 7.5 wins because we knew that weirdness was going to happen. And basically, if you won 8 games, you could sell this. No matter how you got to 8, you could say it was the first time in 25 years Purdue has back-to-back 8-win regular seasons, and under 7, or under 7.5, and you feel terrible because it's like you wasted AOC's senior year. Payne Durham, you have a lot of really good talent. You have more than one NFL player on the roster, and so, you're sitting here. The IU game is between you and a successful season, and that's probably how this had to end, right? So it's
yeah, and Motor City Boiler says 7.5 was the betting line too, and I can validate that because I may or may not have quite a bit of money on Purdue over 7.5 wins.
Oh no, the vibes are not good.
There's a lot riding on Saturday.
The vibes are not good. The second yacht money.
The 7.5 over regular season wins. I also bet that Purdue would have 10 regular season wins because that was a separate. They had 10 win seasons because I'm not the only one.
Still happen.
Yeah, I don't think so. It was 10 regular season wins. I don't know why I bet that one. That was. But there was a little while there where they got up to 5-2, and I was like, ooh, I think it's possible. Yeah. Got a question from a regular reader: is 8 wins regardless of how a successful season?
Yes. Yes. Sorry. Yes. Absolutely. Sorry. If you haven't done a thing in 25 years, it's a success.
He's saying regardless of how. I think he means if you lose Saturday but win your bowl.
Oh, in the bowl game, I don't like that bowl wins get counted as regular season wins.
No, this
or like as totals. This is the win.
7-5 is a little bit of a letdown from where the season started.
7-5 and no bucket. Yeah, that's a disappointment.
Yeah,
and I'm the sunshine and roses one when it comes
Right.
to the football program, right? So it's like,
But
but
think about
7
where,
wins and no bucket, yeah, that's a disappointment.
with this schedule and this team and this talent, that's yeah.
8 wins in the bucket, it's fine. Like,
They went
it's
in the
weird.
bucket with a chance to win a ninth.
That's the difference, you know?
Right. But we talk about that. The same thing happens in basketball, right? Where a Sweet 16 is acceptable, and Elite Eight is a great year, right?
It's
Like
legendary year. Yeah,
it's right.
exactly.
It's like one extra win makes an enormous difference. But with football, one extra win is a huge percentage.
It is. I
It's a
mean,
huge
like, it's
percentage of the season.
yeah.
8-4 looks so much better than
Unless you're a Texas A&M fan.
Of
8-4,
course.
they'd kill for 8-4 now.
That's the thing. You guys say stuff like that about them in Nebraska. No, they would not, because Texas was in this position under Herman and won 10 games at least once.
I just meant now, not
I
perennially.
know,
I
but
just
no,
meant
they
right
wouldn't
now.
kill for it. If they turned around and won 8 next year, they would not be happy. They would not. They'd be happier. They'd still be going to the games.
I didn't say next year. I meant literally just right now. If they could Freaky Friday into an 8-win season, I think they'd take that. But
yeah, Freaky Friday into an 8-win season. Well, of course, everybody wants more than 3 wins.
Yeah, well, maybe you should talk to Nebraska. Maybe they should ask Nebraska, or Vandy's coach how to get a few more wins. Maybe with a couple more $12 million, Jimbo could do it. Anyway,
$12 million.
Dylan Kuhn, Boilers by $1 billion. I think
Boilers
that's
by $1 billion. I
that's
mean,
good.
Yeah. What if it only rains in the second half? Now you guys are being silly. I think that you have to. Okay, if you're forcing me to put money on a game, I have to pick Purdue. I'm a little worried about 10.5, only because they haven't been covering spreads of late.
Exactly. Yeah.
So
they were in the first half of the season, but yeah.
Right. They were covering overs. I don't know that they were covering spreads. Every game was very close. They probably covered against Minnesota, because I'm sure Minnesota. And by the way, screw you, Minnesota. You
just
freaking
in general.
Well, but like all you had to do was beat Iowa at home in probably your senior day for the Floyd, and you couldn't do that. Then Purdue has a completely clear path. Like
Purdue so far has covered the spread 4 times this season. So yeah, I mean, it wasn't and the offense, and only once in the last month and a half, 2 months, so month and a half. And so take the points, but the Purdue win. That's our nervous prediction.
Right. I think that's what you have to go with. Boiler Dad thinks Purdue by 17 if it's not raining. That's what he said. So,
but if it is, who knows?
Yeah. Well, it's been a pleasure as always. 2 pods in 4 days. I'm exhausted. I think I need to get
Don't say we never gave anything to you.
We'll be back Wednesday with the next handsome. No, we won't. We won't be back Wednesday.
Boiler Down to do something. We know
he does one every day, I think.
That's right.
Because
otherwise, he does. You can just hear either he records it or he just opens his window and yells, and it's fine.
Right. He'll be doing a glasses review on Wednesday.
Unboxing, yes.
An unboxing. So I really like these because there's 2 lenses, and when I look through them, I can see better. Yes. All right.
Delightful.
It's been a pleasure. We love you guys. Good night.